Epilogue. Ugh, don't mind me, I'll just go have a love affair with a German Shepherd. It's fine.
Hey, before we started this episode, I just wanted to really take a moment and thank John. John Algen has been doing an incredible amount of work for this podcast for over 300 episodes. This will be his 300th episode helping out. He started way back in chapter 40. He offered to take a look at our early recordings and gave a ton of advice in terms of quality and has put in so much work taking a first pass at these episodes. You know, his ability to dig in and take out all the ums and uhs and just consistently turn these episodes over so quickly so that I can procrastinate on them. You know, I don't know how to thank him enough. And so I just want to say, John, thank you. Your work means the world to me and to this podcast.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Speaking of chapters, should we get into the epilogue?
The epilogue. So. Me and Enarra were talking before, and we were saying, you know, this is like the book with the longest prologue and the shortest epilogue. Or at least, I mean, I think we get 5 or 6 perspectives in 4 pages.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Because we've got Phalion, Herid Fel, a seeker, or not a seeker, a listener, spy for the Empire, a Shanchan, and then Mogedion, and then Egwene, and then Demon Dread. That's 6?
And a prophecy.
And then a prophecy.
Right.
So no repeats, no lingering on any one perspective. Mogedion is the longest, and that's because we've got mostly flashback.
Mm-hmm.
It's very quick. It really, it should go at the end of Do My As Wells, except Do My As Wells is too much to possibly have anything other than a nice, solid end of the battle. Like,
yeah.
But it really is just wrapping up the book. There's not really a lot of new content.
But when I think about this epilogue, I'm like, oh man, that must be like a 20-page epilogue. There's so much that happens in it. But each paragraph is like, nope, just like the bare bones meat. I started highlighting. I want to read most of this epilogue.
Yes!
I thought the exact same thing. The reason I had 3 colors of highlighter was like the 3 of us basically reading almost the entire thing.
Such an entire mood. It's because this is the kind of stuff that What Spoilers is good at exploding, right? Mm-hmm. This is not an action scene. This is tying it together and foreshadowing what comes next. So it's just high quality writing that you want to read.
So which one of you two would like to read us in?
Well, I was going to suggest Aradia for the beginning.
Okay. But okay, I like that. Let's take each section, read it, and talk about it unless we feel...
Yeah.
Okay. So you want me to read the first one?
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I'll do second.
What I had... Here, let me just tell you what I had thought.
Okay.
Aradia with the first one, Seth for the second and the third. They're both male. Then I'd take Mogedion and Egwene, and then Seth with Demondred and Aradia with the prophecy.
I like it.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a plan. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm going to do my best to get through this with minimal self-consciousness. Lord of Chaos, Epilogue, The Answer, and our symbol is the snake and wheel. The man only paused long enough to rest his hand on the door of the sedan chair, and was away as soon as Phalion took the note from his fingers. Her rap had the 2 bearers moving almost before the fellow in Tarazan Palace livery stepped back into the crowd of the square. There was only one word on the small square of paper: gone. She crumpled it in her fist. Somehow they had slipped out again without her people inside seeing. Months of futile search had convinced her there was no cache of Terangrial, whatever Mogedion believed. She had even considered putting a wise woman or 2 to the question. One of them might know its whereabouts, if it existed, and horses might fly. All that kept her here in this wretched city was the simple fact that when one of the chosen gave a command, you obeyed until it was changed. Anything else was a short road to a painful death. Yet, if Elaine and Nynaeve were here, they had ruined everything in Tenchico. Whether or not they were really full sisters, impossible as that seemed, Phalion would not take their presence as coincidence. Maybe there was a cache. For the first time, she was glad that Moghedien had ignored her since giving her her orders so many months ago in Amadisia. What had felt like abandonment might yet be a chance for advancement in the Chosen's eyes. That pair might yet lead her to the cache, and if not, if there was no cache, Moghedien seemed to have interest in Elaine and Nynaeve themselves. Delivering them would certainly be better than non-existent ter'angreal. Leaning back, she let the sway of the chair soothe her. She did hate this city. She had come here as a runaway when she was a novice, but perhaps this visit would end pleasantly after all.
It's fascinating that both times that you read Angriel, you read it as ter'angreal.
Well,
When...
damn it.
It's fascinating.
When our mind puts in things that are not there.
Right? When I read this aloud to myself, I read it as Sa'angriel.
Wow.
So we
not
both
hear
stumbled
myself do
at
that.
the first sentence. Yeah, I wondered if you would catch it, but you didn't.
I had no idea I
fascinating.
said that, so thank you for pointing it out.
Well, just record the word Angriel and snip it in. But
Yes, we can just cut the tar out.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. You'll never notice.
except it is a cache of ter'angreal.
True, though. It's a cache of ex-Angreal.
They're both.
So, and another part where you stumbled was Wise Woman, which I also thought was really
I was
interesting.
trying to say wise one. It's like,
Exactly.
other kind
Yeah.
of wise.
But I thought Phalion's use of that term was interesting too, given the obvious situation here with her when she was a novice.
Yeah, it's funny. She clearly was one of those that the kin rebuffed and didn't take in and let the tower catch instead. Yeah, well, or she got turned in or something.
Oh, interesting. I didn't really notice that. Was she a runaway?
Yeah.
Yes.
She came here as a runaway when she was a novice. I think that means that the tower was allowed to get her or was led to her by the kin.
Well, and because the kin has no runaways. It's simply those who were thrown out or failed.
Right. They don't like runaways. They're going to send them back.
They don't take runaways.
They help shuttle runaways back to the tower. They don't like wilders. They collect runaways and give them back, and then they also absorb the rejects, right? They have 3 separate functions.
Wait, what was the first one?
Hating wilders and not accepting them. That's not really a function, but they don't accept wilders, right? They don't take the Daughters of Silence. They don't...
Yeah. Normal Aes Sedai bias.
Yeah, they only take tower rejects. Very specific ideas about that. But Phalion was obviously a runaway that was either neglected until the tower found her or was deliberately exposed by the kin to the tower. Because honestly, the way that she says maybe this visit would end pleasantly, I would bet that she ran away and got found by the kin, and the kin made sure that the tower found her.
I suspect so. Because it does say in the Black Book that she was caught and brought back.
I have to wonder if the bitterness of that is part of what turned her to the black.
Phalion.
Yep.
I don't remember when she turned to black. I know Leandrin was... No. Was it Leandrin or Alviarin? Either way, one of them was black before she went to the tower.
Most Black Aja are recruited after they become Aes Sedai.
Yeah. I know that one is distinctly from before, but it's not Phalion. So yeah, maybe she tried to run away from the tower. The tower was very uncool about not letting that happen, and that's part of why she found a different way to escape. I'd buy it.
I think she doesn't necessarily know what the kin are or even the term, otherwise she probably would have said that rather than Wise Woman.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. She only dealt with the public face.
And here we get sort of the obvious explanation of why the Black hasn't found the cache. They just haven't bothered to question the Wise Ones. They just dismiss them.
And presumably that means that there's no Darkfriend kin, like, by definition.
And in a way that makes a lot of sense because Black Aja doesn't recruit from novices and accepted who are the only ones who ever become part of the kin.
Right.
It is surprising that nobody who becomes kin would seek out the dark side.
I bet the rules are... Yeah, that's a good question. I think they just flew under the radar. I think everyone just dismissed them as unimportant, including the Black.
how do you only attract people to your organization that don't want to seek out the dark side?
Well, how many dark friends are there?
They become Aes Sedai.
A third of Aes Sedai?
It's a lot.
I mean, we've got Tinkers, we've got Sea Folk, we've got Aiel. Like, everyone has dark friends except the Ogier. And apparently the kin, I guess maybe the kin are... The kin imitate the White Tower. You'd think a third of them would be Black Aja, or the equivalent.
I don't know. The kin are just so pure. Like, they're like trying to follow the Aes Sedai ways so purely that it doesn't really surprise me that they would all be good people.
But the Aes Sedai have institutional Black Aja-ism.
But that's because the Black, Shamael in particular, sees them as power. And so the Black Aja is set up deliberately with a task of corrupting the White Tower, and the White Tower specifically. And I think other Dark Friends are simply distributed, you know? And because they ignore novices and accepted, there's just never been any crossover.
Okay, riddle me this. What do people who
Ta'Veren.
want to... No. What do channeler dark friends do with themselves if they are not part of the Black Aja? Where do dark friend channelers find themselves?
They die. Well, I'm not sure what do you mean. Like,
I mean, like, if the kin are attracting non-Aes Sedai channelers one way and another...
They're not. They don't take wilders in.
All the Tower rejects don't want to become dark friends? None of the people that are rejected from the Tower ever want to become dark friends?
I'm thinking the impulse might be there, but there's no organizational connection. Whereas in the White Tower, you have the impulse as a Aes Sedai. There's like 10 people there being like,
But there's dark friends in the rest of the world.
I like what Keith is saying. They head north. They go to the Blight.
I don't buy it though. I don't buy it. There are normal dark friends, non-channeler dark friends with their own organizations. What if a woman tried to integrate herself with the kin, found that they were way too good at keeping out dark friends, and is not going to engage herself with that? How is she not going to go out and start up an organization? How is she not going to find her way into some dark friend circle and become an extra useful illusionist on the sidelines? I feel like there's a demographic of dark friends we aren't seeing in the story.
You mean basically like Nynaeve if she just happened to also be a dark friend?
Right, or Alviarin or Leandrin, whichever one it was that was a dark friend before going to the Tower. Like, if she had been rejected at the gate, where would she have gone? If she was already a dark friend when she walked up and asked to be made a novice, and then they said no, where does she go? Do you think she doesn't become a dark friend because she doesn't get magic power evil people? I don't think so. I think she finds a heart, she finds an organization, she finds an uprising of dark friends and murders Pavara's family, right? Why do we not see that? Why are they not in the kin? They know that they would know the kin exists.
I think it's not necessarily a whole. It's just one of those things that just hasn't happened. And like, or it doesn't happen on screen. Like, we can assume that there are dark friend uprisings, maybe some dark friend channelers, like, hanging out there doing dark friend things. But like, without an organization, first of all, they don't know about the kin because the kin is super secretive, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't approach any wilders. They only approach people who their spies have told them have been kicked out of the White Tower, or are runaways. And so, yeah, if you're Phaleon who doesn't make it in, you go out and you try and cause some mischief, but like, chances are you have to hide the fact that you can channel because you're afraid of Aes Sedai coming down on you. Like, whether you're a dark friend or not, you have to do that.
That's true.
There are dark friends all over the place, but, I don't know. It's something I could see happening, and maybe then you just get recruited up to Sheo Ghul, and they're like, okay, we want you up here hanging out.
Future Dreadlord, yeah.
Because we do see a bunch of Dreadlords in the last battle that come out of nowhere.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe it's just there's few enough people that the odds are not in my favor.
Maybe there's few enough people who, have the spark and can channel and make it through being a wilder. Maybe there just aren't that many of them.
Yeah, and become dark friends.
Yeah.
And get recruited. And, it's a series of unlikely and unfortunate events.
Because literally everyone hates the wilders, right? The White Tower doesn't really want them. The kin don't want them. Like, where do these women go?
I'm surprised that the kin doesn't have these women, but you guys are making good arguments that the statistics are not inevitable because of just the sheer scale of the population. It's just not inevitable.
There's probably dark friends out there who could learn to channel.
Obviously.
But they're not being, the White Tower has been so bad at recruiting.
And the secretive nature of both dark friends and the kin combine to make them ships in the night that never actually pass.
Right. And we're talking about just sparkers.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a sparker that survives.
That's true. That's a 1 in 4, or 1 in 5 right there. Plus 2 hyper-secretive societies. Out of, 1%. Okay. Yeah, we're talking like 3 people who ever might have made that happen, I guess, so...
And Jordan can't write about everything.
I don't like it. No. Yes, he can. Robert, I am disappointed in you for not exploring this incredibly rare situation. Damn it.
I do think there's potentially a hole here, but we're talking our way out of it, yeah.
Don't mind me, I'll just go have a love affair with a German Shepherd. It's fine.
I mean, I think the bigger hole is that the Forsaken can't find a single fucking Angreal when our main heroes just stumble across them left and right.
Okay, that's a super good perspective shift. That's a really good grounding down to earth. The Forsaken don't find all these Angreal that are just literally under every rock.
Or every stone. Get it?
Stone and tear. Got it.
Nice. I didn't get it. Thank you, Aradia.
You're welcome.
There was a cache in the Stone of Tear.
No, I got it now. Thanks.
Oh, well,
explain it more. It gets funnier that way when you do it.
Okay, so the stone of the Stone of Tear is often referred to as the stone as the sword in the stone, because there is a sword called Kalendor in the stone, which is the Stone of Tear, that Rand actually pulls out of a barrier, and then it gets doubly compounded when he puts it back into the stone. But not only does he put it in the Stone of Tear, he actually drives the sword into the stone of the floor, which Narishma then pulls out, which doesn't that make Narishma the King of England?
But that's none of my business.
So you're saying that Rand is Arthur, but then who is Arthur Pendragon?
Also Arthur.
Hawkwing.
Yeah, that's Hawkwing.
This is very confusing.
It's almost like these myths became rumors that got all tangled up and became legends.
And then became trending.
Like a circle. Interesting.
Or a wheel. Of time.
Hashtags fade to history. What?
Merlin, Moraine. Okay, I'm down with it.
Yeah, I think we've gone there. Do we have anything else to say about this POV? Other than, hey, Moghedien's ignored her because she's been captive.
I want to point out that we've got our evidence of the whole gone thing. We have our evidence of them using the Mirror of Mists to sneak out of the palace.
Yes.
That's something that doesn't really get discussed for a long time, but this is our first evidence of them using that.
Nice. I didn't catch that. I was wondering about it, though.
Yeah, because at this point we've got spies trying to keep an eye on them from multiple parties. Matt is presumably getting his soldiers into position for that, and they're failing the same as Phalian's spies, and that is very good for our Supergirls, as it turns out.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, by trying to hide from Matt, they've actually hidden from Moghedien.
Yeah, they have no idea.
Like, Matt...
Do we know why Moghedien initially sent them there? Was it specifically for the cash?
Rumors about Terangreal.
How does Moghedien know about because she's there on Moradin's orders. That's why she goes to Ebudar.
She sent them after Tenchiko, eh?
Yeah, there was that whole scene where she puts them all and gives them orders one by one, except for Leandrin, and she tells her orders out loud.
But that's to go find Nynaeve and Elaine. That's not to find a cache of Terangreal.
Everyone gets different orders.
Oh, and these are some of the orders that she sent out. Right.
Yes. So of that group of 13, they got split up. And in particular, Phalion got sent to Ebudar to look for a cache of Angreal that may or may not be there.
I wonder where the rumor of this cache of Terangreal comes from. Because it can't have come from our Supergirls finding it in the dream. That wouldn't make sense.
I think it's just you have legitimate rumors because it exists, right? Like, people know about it.
I was about to say it must have come from Halima, but the timing's wrong.
Maybe there is a dark friend in the kin.
If she dies in the golem attack, there's every reason to never find out that she was a dark friend.
Yep, at one of those parties, the kin tells one of the chosen that there's a cache.
There's an argument made later that none of them are dark friends because some of them died during the attack. But
That's a sacrifice Dark Friends are willing to make.
It fits that they decide they need to burn their contact, which is the one Dark Friend kin. I mean, it doesn't break canon.
I would assume only the Council of Eldest really know where the cache is, or just the Knitting Circle. Sorry, not the cat. Why did I say Council of Eldest?
So one of the Knitting Circle would have had to be a Dark Friend? Oh, but the Knitting Circle does rotate members.
Right. That person could have been rotated out of.
So there's more than 13 women who know.
They could be at the farm for all we know.
And it could be that maybe only a few people know where the specific storage is, but other people hear about the cache. It's like, oh yeah, we have a place where we stick all the things we find.
And
that could be like a rumor, where they know that it kind of exists, but they don't know what's in it or where it is or how big it is. It's like, well, we found some stuff.
Right, because in the Rahad somewhere is very vague. No, I could see it if they're building this cache over centuries in a city that is building itself over centuries. I could see there being a persistent rumor without there being an acute timeline thing. Or an acute timeline thing. It works.
And it sounds like it probably was just a rumor, because otherwise she would have known where to go.
Because at that point, Moghedien was kind of scattershotting it, right? You go here and look for a cache. You go there and look for a cache. You go there and look for a cache. Whatever it is.
And how much time has gone by since Tenchiko? A year? 6 months? 8 months?
3 months?
When was Tenchiko? End of what book?
Tenchiko is end of book 5? Yeah, because Allie and Gus just finished...
so not that much time at all then.
Just finished Fires of Heaven. That's book 5, right?
Yeah, and Lord of Chaos, frankly, I think it's only a couple of weeks, because it's like if you follow Rand's POV... he bounces around between a couple of cities, then he sulks for a week or two, and then he gets kidnapped, and he's on the road for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so that's this book. So last book was only
this book
a
is
few
only
weeks.
maybe a month.
Yeah, we're talking maybe 5 or 6 weeks tops.
It's interesting that she feels like she's been abandoned. That's not that long a time.
But the girls went back to Saladar. They were in Saladar for a while, had to convince Egwene. Egwene had to become Amerlin, and then they had to get sent here.
It's like, because they had to travel from Tenchiko to Saladar overland. And that's a really
And she
long
says
period.
that she's been here for months, right? She's been searching for this thing for months and months since Tenchiko. So months of futile search has convinced her. So it took her a while to travel.
So it's got to be at least 3 months.
But probably not a full year or anything like that.
I would think less than 6 months, given the timeline of the total books.
Mm-hmm.
So between 3 and 6 months.
Nodding.
Long enough to feel abandoned, but not long enough to actually dent long-term planning.
Right, and especially with, like, these Forsaken, like, who the fuck knows what they're up to and what they're doing. And, like, obviously she hasn't actually found anything, so maybe she's being watched, and if she found anything, she'd be contacted immediately,
And Moghedien has not contacted her since then, because she was captured in Saladar not long after she split her coterie of dark friends. It wasn't actually that long until she got captured. So the majority of this time has been 0 contact from Moghedien, because she's under lock and key.
Or is she?
Well, she's about to not be if we,
Exactly.
when we get there. So I think that's it that I have for that section.
I had one quick thing before we get to Herid and the extremely depressing paragraph. The chapter title, The Answer. What is that referring to?
42.
I assume when Demandred asks, "Have I not done well, Great Lord?" And the answer is the Great Lord's laugh. He just laughs. That's the only question that I really found being asked in this episode.
I would agree with that. There's a lot of... It's the resolution to the book. There's a lot of questions that the book poses that get wrapped up here, but I like your interpretation better because it's more to the point.
It's like, did I do well? He laughs. Yes, the Lord of Chaos did, in fact, rule. And that's the answer to, was Rand's kidnapping and freeing a good thing? Was it just entirely a plan by the Dark to fuck with his head? And I think the second is true.
That is the answer. Yeah, okay.
I like it.
We can revisit it later on, too, but...
As I read this book, the more I'm convinced that when Jordan was writing it, he really did think Demandred was Taim.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. Like, so-called Aiel, the fact that they're both hook-nosed, dark-haired people.
The timing at Dumai's Wells.
The timing of Dumai's Wells. Have I done well? Like, it's just so hard to escape Demandred. Despite the fact that we know it's not true in the later books, it's like, dude, you have to you have to do backflips in order to justify them not being the same person. And I know because I've been doing those backflips.
Yes, one has developed quite the core doing backflips for this, Robert.
We've derailed into a later part of the epilogue, so...
Yes, okay. So, I will read Herid Fel.
Goodbye, Herid Fel, R.I.P.
The brown of in all our souls is Herid Fel.
Oh, yeah. All right, make our hearts sob.
Sitting in his study, Herid was peering into his pipe and wondering whether he had the means of lighting it at hand. Which, okay, I gotta interrupt myself.
I know! I know!
Rand!
Yeah.
What a callback to the end of the series. When Rand doesn't have the means of lighting it and simply lights it with his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, is it no wonder that we love Herid Fel, even though he appears in just a few brief scenes?
Yeah, 100%.
I have to stop because this is the first time I noticed that phrase. Like, and just how much that calls back to the end of the series in the pipe lighting, which we know is something Jordan wrote the pipe lighting series. The scene, I mean.
And probably, it's entirely possible he already had it written at this point.
At this point, yes. Sitting in his study, Herid was peering into his pipe and wondering whether he had the means of lighting it at hand when the golem squeezed under the door. Of course, even if Fel had been paying attention, he would not have believed. And once the golem was inside the room, few men would have stood any chance. When Idrian came to Fel's study later, she stared at what was piled none too neatly on the floor beside the table. It took her a moment to realize what it was, and when she did, she fainted before she could get a scream out. However, many times she heard of someone torn limb from limb. She had never seen it before. Whew!
Fucking fuck.
He was just a sweet old man who liked to read his books, and simply because the Dragon Reborn asked him some questions, and he had some good answers.
Yeah.
Simply because he was valuable to Rand.
Yeah.
Samael ordered his death?
Yeah, I always wondered who actually knew to take out Fel, because the golem did not pick him at random.
Absolutely not. Is this the first time, like Keith said, he distinctly remembers saying, what the fuck is a golem? Is this the first time? It's not the first time we've heard of a golem, is it?
Yes? Somebody get us some Googling. Full of Life says it's the first scene. And
okay.
I really do want to say this is the first time. I do want to point out that golem is a real word.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with the real world, with the real word from the real world, it is it gives you pause right then and there. But yeah, it is the first instance of it being mentioned in the books.
The first action.
And so we know that the golem came from a stasis box, or else it would have died, we think, from age or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's
canon, yeah.
Stated at some point, yeah.
And we know that Samael found a stasis box in his reference to find the golem. So at this point, while Samael is still alive, we assume the golem is working at his commands.
Okay, Samael.
And also, we know that Rand is gearing up to attack him.
And he wants him to know he's gearing up to attack him.
Oh, and then Obscure is saying that Rand apparently blurts out something about golem when talking about Shadowspawn earlier, when talking to Taim. So, yeah, that's gotta be... I mean, I'm going to go with Taviran saying that's probably because the golem is a piece on the board again. Because it got brought out of a stasis box.
He says the word golem?
I actually want to agree with Obscure that, yeah, he does. It's one of those, it's kind of like a Brigida moment where he, like, runs away a little bit with the Luce Theron memories. That rings a bell.
Chapter 3. I've heard rumors they had to break... Let's see, this is him and Taim talking.
Okay.
They had to break free eventually. So the word was spreading. Rand grinned in spite of himself. The Aes Sedai would not be pleased. Aside from anything else, there was a certain pleasure in tweaking their noses. You can expect anything at any time. Trollocs, Murdral, Drakkar, Greymen, Golem. He hesitated. He had no idea what a golem was.
Chapter 3 of this book?
Luce Theron had not stirred, but he knew... Yep. Chapter 3 of this book. Yep.
And then it takes out Fel in the epilogue.
And then we have Grendel speaking with Samael, where they start talking about a golem.
Presumably that's the scene where she's asking about him finding a stash of Terangrial. And he's like, oh, nothing big, just some art pieces or whatever. And she's like, you totally found a nuke, didn't you? And he's like, I'm not saying anything. We can presume that a golem is the nuke in the subtext of that question.
Absolutely.
Oh my god.
It makes sense that he'd be the one that has it.
Yeah. Oh, good callback to the beginning of the book.
And I don't see any evidence of anybody drained of blood. We see that later when the golem's stalking Matt. There's a bunch of people drained of blood in cities and stuff like that. I don't think that happened here.
I mean, undoubtedly, some of Fel's blood went into the golem's belly. But yeah, this was an assassination, not a feeding.
Exactly.
But I'm sure that there's a certain amount of sweet tribute that the golem took.
It's interesting that Robert Jordan took the concept of vampires and kind of split it into two different beasts, the Drakkar and the golem.
The Drakkar consumes your soul, but flies and has the sort of bat-like characteristics.
Right.
And the feeding characteristics and the hypnosis, whereas the golem has the draining of the blood to live off of and getting strength.
Immortality and repairability. Doesn't have an aversion to garlic or need consent, but
you could say there's something about the amulet, silver.
Because it uses the power. Because the golem doesn't respond to the power the same way that Matt's medallion doesn't respond to the power. So it's like the antithesis of the OP, right? It's the antithesis of the creator's energy. It's very much a creature of the Dark One. It's very much like a true power sort of creature.
The golem negates the power the same way the medallion does, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so you have these two negative powers canceling each other out. These two things that are supposed to negate. It's almost like a crossing the streams moment where you have the balefire crossing, and they wipe each other out, and you have this sort of paradox.
Yeah, it's not like an Herid Fel Dark One kind of thing. It's not like that.
No, these aren't like opposites. This is like the same thing that just sort of combusts. It's almost like talking about nuclear weapons, it's almost like hitting critical, right? And basically you force two of these things together and you get little explosions where they touch.
Yeah.
They go critical. There's critical mass. Maybe that's that's not the greatest analogy, actually.
It's outside of the pattern, not truly part of the pattern, like Mihaf is saying.
Oh, and that kind of brings you back to steading. It's like, how would a golem fare in a steading?
Probably wouldn't.
Would it just I'm wondering, could it even enter a steading? I kind of don't think it could.
And now we come to 101 ways to kill a golem. Favorite 1996 internet articles that I stumbled across.
That's a good one.
Back in the days.
That's a good one.
One of the suggestions way back in the day was definitely pushing it through a gateway and letting it drop into the void. That had been suggested on that article.
Oh, really?
Long before Sanderson came up with it. So, I mean, there were so many. It was literally 100 ways to kill a golem. It's hard to imagine one that wasn't on the list.
Did they mention how they thought golem and steading would interact? Because I could see them either being completely poofed out of existence or being just fine with a steading. Obviously, we have no canon answers, but did 101 Ways to Kill a Golem include steading considerations?
It's actually 50 ways, I should say.
Did you find the article?
Yeah.
I've read it before. That actually does ring a bell. It's 50, not 100.
All right, from the Farmatting crowd. Open a gateway to the steadingness of Farmatting and send the golem through. The idea is that a steading would have the same effect on a golem that Matt's medallion does. If you can use it well in Farmatting, it's not too unreasonable to think you can open a gateway to it from the outside. On the other hand, Pam counters, since you can use it well in Farmatting, that means the one power works there. It's just that a channeler can't connect to the source from there, so I think a golem would do just fine in Farmatting.
Well, Farmatting's not a steading, though.
I don't think it relies on a constant connection.
Farmatting's a special case.
I mean, just to read here, I mean, this is elemental, my dear Watson. Open the gateway to the middle of a volcano or the bottom of an ocean.
Fair.
But open a gateway to the middle of a volcano? This article is from November 2000. And they're talking about opening...
I'm going to just go ahead and bet all my resources that Brando Sando read that.
At some point in his life, I think it got into his head.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen if you opened a gateway into a volcano? One miracle, as requested.
Get away from her, you bitch. The alien solution. Open a gateway to the vacuum of space and let the golem get sucked through.
Ooh, that would create a hell of a pressure clap, though.
Out of this world. Open a gateway to the skimming place, shove the golem through, and close the gateway. According to Egwene, the chances of ever opening into that skimming space are very low, so the chances the golem will be permanently lost in space. Right there.
Yeah.
In black and white.
Wow. Prince Adlin's boyfriend. Say you want a committed relationship.
I want to date you. Well, then he'd just kill you.
Meow.
Honestly,
Plot twist. Sanderson is a super fan. Sanderson wrote this article. I mean, mood.
Does the void have gravity?
The Wheel of Time FAQ. I have to read the thing at the bottom. Wheel of FAQ. Copyright 2004 by Leah Butler, Pamela Corda, and Eric Sadum.
You are all different parts of Brando Sando's alter identity. Just headcanoning it right
thank you very
now.
much.
Because this is why we want to kill this fuckhead. Is because he killed freaking Herid Fel, and we love Herid Fel, and so therefore 50 ways to kill a golem is not nearly enough.
So why do we think, is presuming that Jordan had already written the pipe lighting, is this like a callback to the end of the book? Like, is he trying to make some allusions that like Fel is what Rand would have wanted to be if he couldn't channel or wasn't the dragon, or just how close they were?
I think maybe that Fel is the key to the end.
Is Fel the answer?
Yeah, I like that.
The answer. Is Fel the answer?
Oh, yeah. The question is, how do I
Light the pipe?
seal the Dark One?
Yeah, how do I
light
win
the pipe? Yeah.
and stay
How
alive?
do I win? Herid Fel's note is the answer to all of that, right?
Yeah, and just like we don't know how he lit the pipe, we never fully know exactly what Herid told him.
No, we just have some of the basic notes. We only get the cliff notes of what Rand and Fel ever talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what was the note specifically?
Must tear down to rubble to build new?
Belief and order give strength. Have to clear rubble before you can build. Will explain when see you next. Do not bring girl too pretty.
We'll explain when see you next. That's how you know he's gonna die.
Yeah. Crap, we're never seeing him again.
R.I.P. right there. But this is why, right? Like, Rand talks to a lot of people who don't get assassinated. The reason that Fel is assassinated is because he has vital information to impart to Rand when next they talk.
The answer.
And Samael knows because...
There's a lot of people at school?
I just think it's so much that I think Rand just keeps consulting with him over and over and over and over again. It's like, oh, this is clearly someone important to Rand and a resource. Take him away.
Fel wouldn't have had the wherewithal to hide who he is with respect to Rand. He's like, I'm brilliant and the Dragon Reborn likes talking to me. Also metaphysics.
What do you think? He writes a book called Reason and Unreason?
Oh, is that the one that Min picks up?
Mm-hmm.
He's a mathematician, man. He's way out there or he's a logician, actually. He's just out there in pure logic.
We didn't get enough of him in the books. It would have been really nice if he had been a bigger character.
Yeah, but I do think that it must have been a dark friend in the school just kind of keeping an eye on what Fel was studying and how often Rand came to talk to him.
Yeah, all the Ashaman are dark friends. Like, there's so many around Rand.
And the school is, like, not having a high background check procedure, right? They're just letting in anyone who's interested in anything.
Very true.
Because that school has all kinds. Medieval torture is horrible. Nobody do that. Don't do that. It's bad. Don't be like that. Don't tear people limb from limb.
It's definitely the biggest gut punch in the epilogue at the end of the book, I think.
The fact that Idrian passes out from horror when she engineered the super spear thrower during the siege of Cairhien is like, that's a gnarly scene. Because she's cool in the face of minor death and destruction.
Well, torn limb from limb.
That's really bad. I mean, that's bad.
It also gives you some insight into the capabilities of the golem.
The strength.
Right? The first time we see him, he literally just pulled someone apart.
Yeah.
Another vampire trait.
Yeah, preternatural strength, for sure. It's so sad we care so much about Fel, and it's like so much of it is because of how his death is written, I think. A lot of it has to do with how much Min is attached to his memory, but like the way he dies is so randomly brutal. Like, this is why we love Fel so much, partially. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. We've waxed rhapsodic about it for, like, ever, so.
Shall we talk about the rogue Shan-chan, or spy Shan-chan?
Yeah.
So this is a callback to a guy who looked startled at Matt when Matt made a comment about the bloody daughter of the Nine Moons.
Yep, way back. I found this in chapter 52.
Oh, would you like to read that section?
In chapter 52?
Where Matt says the thing and then this guy reacts?
Sure, yeah. Blood and ashes, Matt muttered. Next, the daughter of the Nine Moons is going to walk in and claim me. The blue-eyed fellow choked on his celebratory drink. Do you know the name? Matt asked. My punch went down the wrong way, the man said in a soft, slurring accent. Matt did not recognize. What name was that?
And so here we have the same man from chapter 52. The rider turned his horse at the top of the hill for a last look back at Abu Dar, gleaming white in the sun. A good city for looting, and from what he had learned of the local people, they would resist, so the blood would allow looting. They would resist, but he hoped the other eyes were bringing back reports of disunity such as he had seen. Resistance would not last long. Where a so-called queen ruled a tiny patch of ground, and that combined the best possibilities. Wheeling his mount, he rode west. Who knew? Perhaps that fellow's comment had been an omen. Perhaps the return would come soon, and the daughter of the Nine Moons with it. Surely that would be the greatest omen of victory.
ta'veren!
Right. And just foreshadowing that, like, next book, Shan-chan are coming back. That is a big part of... They invade Abu Dar at the end of the book. They take over Altara, where the White Cloaks are.
They come in with more than just soldiers. They come in with farmers.
And they take back Falma.
Like, this
isn't the Forerunners anymore. This is the return.
The Karen. I mean, we see the last wave of the Forerunners and the beginning of the Karen. I mean, what happened to My Bloody Luck is the last of the Forerunners arriving. And then when we meet Matt next, it's him coming to terms with the fact that the actual Karen has arrived. There's like a whole book there, but like this guy was sent, this blue-eyed guy, this blue-eyed rider has been sent to anticipate the return. And Matt's offhand comment lets him know, like, it's coming, oh my god, it's coming. And like, yes, it is. What Happened to My Bloody Luck is next book, and then the Karen proper arrives book after that. Yeah, this is an omen. Matt's comment was absolutely a ta'veren omen. Like, this is why the Shan-chan omens are not just pure superstition and are based on some sort of pattern recognition that is rooted in a doomseer like Min long ago.
But yeah, there's multiple scenes in Book 7 where we see the return of the Shan-chan to the continent. And then Book 8, we deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah, I mean, Book 2, it's the very beginning shock troops, right? Like, a lot of the series is spent on various stages of the Shan-chan invasion. They are very systematic.
And it seems like, what is it, exactly 1 year has it been? Can we time it out that exact since they got there initially?
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's 6 to 12 months, somewhere in there.
It seems likely that the Forerunners would go out 1 year, and then a year later you send out the rest of
That would make sense.
Based on like how ships work and currents and all that kind
of stuff. How long it takes to sail, how long it takes to subdue an enemy territory. Yeah, I could see that. Send out one fleet a year, and then send the next fleet out a year behind them, regardless of what news you've gotten. Just send them. Assume that they're going to make it.
I thought it was interesting, and correct me if I'm remembering it wrong, but he's thinking that because he's seen all kinds of dueling and the queen is relatively weak, that he thinks that they're going to fight back, the dueling in particular, I think, with the invaders, and he's happy about that, which means he gets to loot. But if I remember correctly, they don't really fight. They kind of just roll over.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why Matt gets buried under a wall. They do fight back. It's just kind of pathetic.
When they show up, the battle is over before it begins. And then Beslan is spending a lot of time with Tom trying to drum up resistance, which Tom says is going to evaporate the second that anyone has to actually risk their skins. And Beslan's one of the only people who is genuinely resisting the Shan-chan after the afternoon when they take over. Because the afternoon they take over, it literally is over before it starts.
Because, I mean, it is. It is swords and spears against tanks and machine guns, right? Like...
And airplanes.
And airplanes, right? Like, and there's just no competition whatsoever. There's no way to even strike back. Like, if they know where you are, they're going to blow you up.
A culture of dueling doesn't necessarily mean that they're good fighters.
Arguably, it means that they're a culture of not bad fighters, but bad collaborators. They fight with each other, not alongside each other. They don't have a strong military tradition. They have a strong, like, oh, yeah, come at me, bro. Like, that's not the same thing.
Shit, is Ebudar Boston? And just like, oh, wait. And just role reversal, so the men are women and the women are men. And it's just like, oh, yeah, I'll stab a bitch.
Yeah, right? It's like, I mean, but... If you roll into town with tanks, are these people who were bickering with each other over prestige going to suddenly fight to the death side by side? No! They're going to each, like, get down on their knees and, like, be subservient to whatever the new order is and then go back to their usual prestige bickering under the new regime. I think this guy is totally suffering from cultural miscommunication on thinking these people are going to resist. Like, he sees them as Shan-Chan, and they are not Shan-Chan.
All hail our Tolrakan overlords.
Just saying, if you're flying on a lizard and throwing fire with your mind, I'm not going to argue with your claims to authority.
Again, I have to ask the question, is this the first time that we realize the Daughter of the Nine Moons is Shan-Chan?
No, that is something that's happened multiple times.
No, yeah. Okay, yeah. I think I asked that last time we talked, and...
It's hinted at early, but it's tangential.
It's very subtle, but it is, like, it happens a lot, but very, very subtly, because it's always these, like, Matt in passing and the guy looks startled, and that's it, right? And if you don't notice, you don't, like, wait, why is he looking startled? And you don't realize it's because he's Shan-Chan and Daughter of the Nine Moons and all that kind of...
Even in chapter 52, where I just read, why would the Shan-Chan with the slurred voice, which is your tip-off that it's a Shan-Chan...
Always surprised me that Matt doesn't catch that, because I'm like, you did hear Shan-Chan during a very traumatic period of your life. So.
We actually talked about that extensively in that chapter. I remember that conversation being like, wait a minute. You know what Shan-Chan sound like? What the hell?
We're just going to blame the dagger for that?
Yeah, and the fact that, like, he often has old memories that he confuses with new memories is all that time where he's like, it must remind me of somebody in one of my past memories, when it's totally someone he's seen in actual recent memory. Like the whole Millie Skane thing. Yep.
Yeah, that's super fair. He doesn't know what's present or not anymore.
So there's times when that really comes back to bite him in the ass.
He has to have occasional setbacks.
So who's reading the Mogedian section?
That one's mine. Okay. Lying on her back in the night, Mogedian stared at the roof of the tiny tent she was allowed to herself as one of the Armelin's servants. From time to time her teeth ground, but as soon as she realized it, she stilled them again, very conscious of the Adam necklace around her neck. This Egwene Alvear was harder than Elaine or Nynaeve had been. She tolerated less and demanded more, and when she passed the bracelet to Swan or Lyanne, especially Swan, Mogedian shivered. That must be what it would be like if Brigitte could wear the bracelet. The tent flap moved aside, emitting just enough moonlight for her to make out a woman ducking in. "Who were you?" Mogedian demanded roughly. When they sent for her in the night, whoever came always brought a lantern. "Call me Arangar," Mogedian, an amused voice said, and a small light bloomed inside the tent.
Dun dun dun.
So yeah, that's Arangar, who was Bathamel, now trapped in a man's body.
Woman trapped in a woman's body.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Now a woman trapped in a man trapped in a woman's body. We see that he's still a man, right? He is still very much reacts to the collar. He still very much channels the male half of the one power. Although my big question here is, how does Mogedian know it's the male half and not the true power?
She assumes. I mean, she knows that it's not Sadar.
Right, because she would be able to sense that.
So she assumes it had to be Sadine.
Yeah, because she said she could still feel it channeled and see the webs woven. So she's assuming this isn't the one power. Or she's assuming this isn't the true power. But I don't know why.
She can see it be woven?
No.
She said that she could see Saidar being woven. You can only feel the true power if you've been granted the right to use it, as I recall, which Moghedien currently hasn't been. So, I mean, we get the confirmation later in this section that it is male channeling because Halima flinches when she releases the collar, and that is a male power on female power, like zap or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why Moghedien automatically leaps to Saidin rather than true power.
Because I feel like there is a scene later where a character sees an effect without being able to sense the power and jumps immediately to true power. I guess she knows who that person is and knows... No, who am I thinking of? What scene am I thinking of?
I think... Crap, who's that? I want to say it's like Grandal observing Demon Dread?
I think it's Moradin, because she's never seen Moradin before using the true... And it's like, why is this nobody using the true power? Because she doesn't realize that he's actually a Shamael.
And she's able to feel that because the Great Lord has given her a bit of right to use the power.
Gotcha.
I believe at that point, like, it's... You shouldn't feel it unless you are also a user of it, just like with Saidin and Saidar. And at that point, Grandal's been given a small amount of access, so she can feel it in Moradin. I think. I'm like 80% sure about that. But Keith is bringing up a good point in chat that Moghedien, in principle, could look at Arangar and see that there's no saw in the eyes.
The saw, she says when she sees the saw in Moradin's eyes that he's been using a lot and almost exclusively the true power. So even if you use true power occasionally, you shouldn't get the saw. It does take a fair amount of active power using to get those.
Well, maybe has the true power been introduced in the plot at this point yet in the series?
Ishmael's been using it, but I don't think officially necessarily.
So maybe that's why Moghedien's mind is leaping to the one power rather than the true power, is because the narrative hasn't yet introduced the true power.
And Jordan didn't want to introduce it here.
Right, this was not the time. Even if he had thought it out, this is not the time. Maybe. I'm not positive. I'm just spitballing.
Writing-wise, it makes sense. And, reinforcing the whole Halima, Aragar being a man thing as well. Like, to make us remember.
Is this the first time we get confirmation that Halima is channeling Saidin?
I think it's in the prologue, maybe.
Just quick note with the true power, looking at Encyclopedia Watt, the first mention of the true power is in Crown of Swords, book 7.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go with that as being why Jordan doesn't have Moghedien's mind leap right to it, because he wants to introduce it with more mechanical background.
The Crown of Swords, sort of chapter 20, seems to be the first place that it really gets mentioned and described in detail. Yeah, and I'll throw this out there that, I don't think we need to talk about this in detail right now, but the idea that in no way is Arangar a representation of a trans person, just a male stuck in a female body as a punishment and not as someone who has any desire or is naturally born into another body. And, the fact that Arangar is never actually interested in sleeping with men makes me believe this is just a man stuck in a female's body.
I think more than that, it's like Halima is put, Baphomet is put into a woman's body as this, weird punishment.
Right.
And that does not work as trans representation.
No.
In the slightest. It's not an accurate representation of transness. It's not a sympathetic representation of transness. And
it's not trying to be a representation.
Yeah, and in fairness, Halima does not try to be a trans person. Halima is just a lecherous fuckhead who will use whatever tools is at their disposal.
Right.
Halima at least is a slime ball through and through that you don't have to feel bad about throwing off of the trans representation bus.
It does make my brain, in the 2021 sensibilities of pronoun usage, it makes my brain kind of hurt a little bit. But
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting because it's not like Halima chose the female exterior, because that would be the feeding into the weird predatory bullshit that is not a real thing. Which it's lovely that Jordan didn't do that, right? He's taking that aesthetic and writing a backstory that isn't creepy. Halima didn't choose to look like a woman designed by a man. That was something that was forced onto Halima.
By what you might call the most evil creature in all of the universe, the Dark One, because the Dark One has this terrible sense of humor.
I, as a person who does not appreciate the gender binary, do need to put it out there that the Dark One is non-binary, is evil, is frustrating as all fuck. So the Dark One can decide to put people in different bodies and make non-trans representation, and it's great for evil people motives, is also fucked.
Yeah.
Not great, not excusing that. But yeah, it's never look to Halima for trans representation. And don't be mad at Jordan for making bad trans representation, because he didn't try. This is not Robert Jordan trying, I don't think.
No.
All I can say is being stuck in the wrong body is bad. And I think that that's something everyone can agree with.
You should be able to feel authentic with the body you're in.
Exactly.
And, you know, the female pronouns are used for the character consistently from here on out that I've ever seen, but we don't have a POV from his perspective.
Agreed. And yeah, I often want to refer to Halima with male pronouns because Balthamel is who's driving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Halima is a he. Halima in soul, in power, in touching the Angreal.
And in personality.
The Sangreal. And in personality, yeah.
Like, didn't change, didn't choose to reinvent, didn't come to terms with. It's just like, oh, I'm driving a different car. Cool.
This one's got female parts.
And in this section, it's Mogedian's perspective, so Mogedian using female pronouns makes sense.
Right, and Halima is a female pronoun using character, being played by Balthamo.
Right.
Right?
I would say being played by Arengar.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yes,
because Arengar is the renamed Balthamo, and we have to respect like the Hessalam versus Grandal. Like, so yes, it is Arengar.
The Sindine versus Lanfear.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. But yeah, it's I've definitely heard people who want to say, is this trans rap? It's like, no.
It's not trying to be.
Nah. It's creative storytelling. It is not trans rap.
Good or bad.
What?
It's not trying to make a positive or a negative statement about it.
Yeah, for sure. And it is nice because it does question a little bit the gender essentialism baked into the world. It's an interesting way to question, to just make you start asking questions. It doesn't give you answers. It just opens that door.
But it does in a lot of ways reinforce it and being like, male is male, female is female.
Which, again, as a non-binary person, I find it just rubs me the wrong way in every possible direction.
Right.
But it is nice that Jordan at least says, I don't necessarily agree with my gender essentialism. I just want to talk about it. And Halima is a nice sideways way to approach that.
Well, and here's where I'll come at it. The place that I've come at a lot of things in Wheel of Time, there are 3 parts of who you are. Mind, body, and soul. And we talk about this a lot with Rand, where he's got, there's 2 minds. There's Lewis Theron, the old guy, and there's Rand. There's one soul that's Rand, always has been Rand, always will be Rand. And obviously there's multiple bodies. There's the body Lewis Theron had, there's the body that Rand has, and then there's the body that he gets from Moradin. And we can differentiate those 3 things and create all these different characters and levels. And I think with Arengar, you can again separate those things. That you have a soul that is very, very much male.
Mm-hmm.
You have a mind that is very, very much male. And you have a body that is very, very much female.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that one of those is stuck in the other causes internal conflict that is unpleasant for that character, no matter how much they've adapted.
Right, yeah, and Halima's also not really given the space to fully process that, right? It's an incredibly traumatic transition with do or die as your next activity, so...
Sure, right.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit of a spy, it's like, on top of that, you've got this whole, like, gosh, why is my mind going to William Dafoe in Boondock Saints? But basically, like, taking on the spy role by also changing genders.
Mm-hmm, right.
And that allows her to be this sort of unique creature that allows her to be in this camp, or him to be in this camp of female channelers and be able to do channeling things and not be suspected as being a male channeler.
Yeah, it was definitely when I was trying to do the D&D game and I wanted to do an intersex channeler, that was definitely like something I thought maybe I'd get to at higher levels, was being able to use the fact that my character looked male but channeled the female half of the power as like a, subvert expectations and get sneaky into places. And of course we never got there because channeling is OP and we got caught up in story. But that was definitely like the expectations of what powers you'd have to work with.
Yeah.
It gives Halima a very, very powerful angle for the dark side to be able to subvert expectations that hard.
And that's the whole, she's channeling Sidene.
Yeah. Sidene, yeah. I don't know why, but somehow it's finally clicked with me and I know which power is for which gender. It's just, I got it. Somehow.
I always think I have it, and then I question myself as soon as I think about it.
I stumbled even when I was talking about it earlier, so glad I'm not alone.
and then you've got the combination of one power, true power. Of course the one power comes from the true source. Fuck you, Jordan.
Yeah.
Honestly, Robert, help us out here.
When I do, you will vanish as quickly and silently as Loghain does. So she's going to free her.
Yep.
Externally from let's go back to Mogedian's POV, where she thinks of Arangar as a her, and uses her pronouns. So I'm going to switch to that. When I do, you will vanish as quickly and silently as Loghain did. And we know that Arangar wanted to get rid of Loghain because Loghain was the one person who could detect the male half of the source being channeled. And
right.
They wanted to get him killed, stilled, or freed. And I think the killed and stilled failed. And I believe that Arangar has been compelling Egwene, right? Isn't she getting the massages?
She's getting headaches, yeah.
I'm thinking one of the reasons that Egwene took that risk and freed her is somewhat because of being compelled.
Really?
I think that might have been one of the things that Arangar was forcing into Egwene's head, is get rid of Loghain.
Oh, I disagree.
No? Yeah?
No, I think Halima wanted Loghain dead, and I think that Egwene freed him because it was the right thing to do. I never saw Halima as wanting Loghain loose.
Fair enough.
I mean, maybe?
It's possible.
What do you think, Enarra?
It's just this line, you will vanish as quickly and silently as Loghain did. Or is that just because she's frustrated that he vanished and she has no idea why?
That's how I interpreted it, yeah. Like, if I can't catch Loghain, you can at least vanish as well as that asshole. But now I'm questioning all my assumptions.
I mean, either way, it's a good thing for everybody that Loghain got away, but it's possible.
Let the Lord of Chaos rule. Let this male channeler who claimed to be the Dragon Reborn back out into the wild to cause all sorts of chaos. Maybe he raises up another army.
Yeah. But it's the right thing to do to let Loghain go, and the Hall was struggling with it. So, like, I feel like Egwene would have behaved as their better selves and just been like, nope, we're letting him go. Like, it's such a safer bet for the dark side to kill him rather than hope he will complicate Rand more than compliment him.
I just struggle because we have Arangar here saying, I've got Egwene under my thumb. And yet we basically see Egwene acting on what we think is her own free will pretty much all the time and doing the right things, And so it's just one of these, like, I'm always trying to be like, are we sure? Are we sure that what she's doing? And here, I'm just trying to say, like, could this be something that she justified in her own head but was actually forced upon her?
Otherwise, all they really accomplished was giving Egwene headaches.
Right.
It's a good question.
It does prevent her from having any prophetic dreams. That is the other thing that we definitely know for sure she's accomplished. And
in fairness, Balthamel was like a lying, cheating hustler, right? So over-representing the success of a given mission is not out of character. But yeah, like, what does Egwene do that actually is in favor of the dark side other than not dreaming? Why would Halima say, I've got Egwene under my thumb? Is it just lying? Is it just self-aggrandizement for the sake of looking good to the other chosen?
Unlikely.
It might just be trying to get an army going and, like, have her, like, look like she's going to attack the tower and cause an actual conflict, Because they were heading into an actual conflict until Egwene got kidnapped.
Because, like, Halima tries to get Egwene to talk to her, like, hey, I'm massaging you, I'm super sexy, I'm super soothing, there's romantic mood lighting, you should let it out, you should talk to someone, like, it's a full-on seduction, like, every night. And Egwene somehow completely doesn't catch the flirting energy and also apparently doesn't ever open up or take advice. So is it just keeping the tower conflict going? Because keeping Egwene going keeps the conflict going. But Egwene never confides in Halima. Like, ever.
No.
So I'm also going to go with Argar being overconfident.
Yeah, maybe. And an illustration of how strong of mind Egwene is. That's
my assumption, is like a hustler and Egwene are going to turn into a hell of a disinformation campaign.
I got a chuckle out of Moghedien sort of thinking about, oh, maybe if she's summoned to Shell Ghoul, she's going to be made nameless. Like, really?
Little chance. Wait, you're telling me there's a chance?
I mean, technically it's possible. Yeah, right, yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
No, and then we hear about when she comes out the other side. I mean, she has nightmares about this moment, right? She's about to go into a vacuole where time runs differently.
The nadir of her career.
Yeah. And get soul trapped.
Yeah.
Like, this is about as bad an outcome as she could imagine.
Oh, yeah. Being put into a mind trap is the next thing to being executed. Just a slow version.
After spending a bunch of time being tortured and raped, like in a vacuole where time passes differently.
Oh my god. Tortured with respect to knowing you're losing your autonomy. Tortured with respect to being stuck in a vacuole. Tortured because Shida Haran is using it for his plaything.
Yeah.
After being completely shamed and conquered by a bunch of children.
Oh god. Yeah, it's... Moghedien thinks that she's had it rough, but she's about to go much, much farther down.
I like that my innocent 16 or 18 or however old I was still pretty darn innocent reading this the first time and not catching the rape aspect.
It took me a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always not sure if Robert Jordan meant for it to just seem creepy and it was actually just a slap across the face. And then the older I get, the more I'm like,
no, I think it was intentional.
It wasn't that kind of fade to black. It was the other kind of fade to black.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been relatively clear about what fades like to do to women.
Yeah, he writes it plain. He writes it obscuredly enough that you can be an innocent teenager and not be like traumatized from having read the books, which is wonderful. You can just be like, I don't know why that was such a sinister fade to black, but okay.
It's the one thing I actually really appreciate about the books in general. They're quite innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
The subtext is there.
They're
if you're
dark.
an adult. But if you're 13, you can skip by without being scarred.
Exactly. Yeah. The darkness is all implied. Like, you have to go there with your brain. It's not written out for you.
Except for the spanking, because spanking's not dark. Spanking's just fun. Apparently. To judge by these books. Just saying.
Really, Aradia? You are... Never mind.
I'm just saying, these books do not rank spanking on the same level as beating. They are given very different categorical tags by the way this book delivers them.
In the chat, Keith mentions it's No Sword of Truth series, and that's exactly where my brain was, Keith, when I was saying that. Like, that series, I got to one where it was extremely explicit about what they were doing, and I picked the book up, I threw it across the room, and then I threw it in the trash, and I never read them again.
I went on a long rant to Travis like 3 days ago while we were walking the dogs. I just went off about how awful The Sword of Truth is and how much I really detest that it ever got published.
I've never read it, and I'm being strongly discouraged from ever picking it up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you really shouldn't.
Unless
you want to watch someone steal ideas from Wheel of Time and other fantasy, package them with a libertarian political view, and then add in a lot of rape and torture scenes. Very explicit.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and not.
And then, just not bother to write good characters.
I just... Between what you're saying and what I'm seeing in chat, I'm just,
It was bad.
Wow. No, thank you. No. I remember being warned off from the Clan of the Cave Bear because of the one rape in it, and reading it and not understanding what I was reading because apparently, like, I'm clueless. And now what's in chat is just making me feel so grateful that that is the book I was being warned off of. Because, wow, guys, I'm being scarred on your behalf.
Yeah, it's the trash that everyone calls it. Absolutely.
Oof.
I think I got to book 5. Like, yeah. Woof.
But there was a time. I mean, when they were coming out, like, I invested in them. You know, I was there. I was young and dumb, and like I read through Confessor. Like, I read the 12 or whatever book series that he wrote. And then, like, and I read the first couple a bunch of times, and, like, I knew the plot as well as I knew Wheel of Time. They were a kind of equivalent in my mind at that time. It took an older me to go back and look at them and again.
Yeah. It took me a while before it got so blatant that my brain could kind of skim over and not really process what was happening and the illusions of what was happening. I was watching one of Daniel Green's YouTubes where he was, like, ranking all of his favorite fantasy. And he got to that one. He said, "This is the one that I will not speak about," and it doesn't even get ranked. And I'm like, yes, that's right. Perfect.
No, I feel a very real sense of betrayal. It's not just this is trash. I feel betrayed by the Sword of Truth. And that it's so much worse than just writing trash.
That's a bummer. So returning with the turtle penises as a on-ramp back to the plot, because why not?
How does that get us back to the plot?
I don't know. I'm going to make it work.
Turtles all the way down.
See, it worked great. So... perspective switch to Egwene.
Yeah, Egwene.
So we're seeing Halima being freed from Egwene's point of view.
When Egwene reached the tent and put her head and lantern in, she found only disturbed blankets. She withdrew slowly. "Mother," Chesa fussed behind her, "you should not be out in the night air. Night air is bad air. If you wanted Marigon, I could have fetched her." Egwene looked around. She had felt the necklace come off, and felt the flash of pain that meant a man who could channel had brushed the link. Most people were already asleep, but a few still sat outside their tents around low fires, and some not far. It might be possible to find out which man had come to Marigon's tent. "I think she has run away, Chesa," she said. Chesa's angry mutterings about women who deserted their mistresses followed her back to her own tent. It could not have been Logain, could it? He would not have come back. Could not have known, could he? Obviously it wasn't. Definitely, absolutely, never in a million years would he have thought of that.
No. Do you think she goes forward with the assumption that it was him?
She probably has to.
I feel like she does worry about it the next time we see her thinking about this in a future book. I think she does consider Logain and discard him as an option again, which means she is thinking about it.
Right. But she sees, she's like, no one was seen in the tent except Halima, but that's a woman, and so immediately dismisses her. That's a great scene where it's like, oh yeah, that the person who actually did it you dismiss simply because of, shall we call it gender bias?
Hiding in plain sight, not seeing the forest for the trees. There's a lot of ways to phrase it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only other person would be either somebody hiding, another male channeler, which they wouldn't have known because they have no way to tell that, I guess, or another Forsaken.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think she thinks, like, is it a soldier? Like, that makes no sense. Like, is it a male Forsaken creeping into the camp? That makes no sense. Like, wouldn't he not do greater damage than whisking away one person? Like, it just, every scenario she comes up with breaks.
Right. And the idea that there is this person who is trapped in the wrong body. Although it does seem like it wouldn't be that hard to come up with a scenario where it's like there's someone dressed up as a woman who's actually a man. Like, just, it doesn't have to be a different body, but just like...
Right. I mean, just changing your hair and glasses, right?
We do have those ceremonies where you have to take down your dress and prove you're a woman by showing off your boobs, right? Maybe that's for a reason, that someone dressed as a a channeling man sneaks into a bunch of...
Thinking about it, there's a ton of options now. I mean, she knows about gateways. She knows about changing your face to look like somebody else, which could be just a man looking like another person. Like,
That's true.
there's tons of options.
So in that respect, I don't think she ever seriously considers Logain, except for the fact that he is the Occam's razor solution, and so she can't not consider him.
Right.
But every time he comes up on the list, it's like, no. No. Even with what she knows about him, it makes no sense.
Do we know how long ago she freed him? Do we have that number?
Hasn't been that long since Nynaeve healed him.
So in Lord of Chaos, chapter 52 is when she arranges for Logain to escape. So that is like literally the last time we saw her.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably been days.
Yeah, because the Hall is really anxious about him. Yeah, I'd say maybe 2 weeks. It would be that being 20 days, maybe, tops. 2 to 20 days.
I'd go even less than that. I would say like the next day.
Well, no, because Nynaeve heals Stilling, and then Egwene gets there like, a week later? It takes her at least a few days to come to terms with all the news and make that decision about Logain. She talks with Swan about it at one point.
Right.
So it's got to be at least a few days after she's raised Amerlin. So that's at least a 10-day week between when he got healed and when Egwene could have made that decision.
Yes, but after he's gone, how long has he been out of the camp?
Right. How long since she actually freed him, though?
Oh, yeah, probably just a few days. Yeah, sorry, I was answering the wrong side of that equation. Yeah, I'd say it's only been... And again, reasons why Egwene would think of him, even though there's no motivation, he's only a few days away. It would be easy for him to have come back. Because he doesn't know how to travel. She knows how to travel, he doesn't know how to travel.
But still, even run away for a couple of days and then come back for some random servant?
Yeah, it's not... There's nothing about him that says Dark Friend, knows it's Moghedian, like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
But she can't help but consider him because he's only a few days gone. Like you said, like, he was just there. He was just there! A man who could channel in the camp.
A nice little bit of writing on Jordan's part. He says that when Egwene reached the tent and put her head in, she had a lantern with her. Just like Moghedian said, everyone who comes to get her has a lantern.
Yeah.
Nice little touch.
Yeah. I also wonder if Chesa might have died if Egwene had just sent her ahead. She might have come a few minutes too early and just been casually cut down.
That would have been awful.
Like, I suspected Chesa several episodes ago of actually being evil because I can't find good evidence for her being good, but, like, also I feel, like, glad she didn't go ahead of Egwene here because she would have died, probably.
I have wondered about her many times and also could not find any evidence that she was evil. But I think I spent the entire time reading these books wondering.
Yeah, I think she would have died if she'd gone ahead. I think because she would have been so quick to get to it, right? You know, Halima would have met her in the door of the tent and been forced to suffocate her or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I was also really relieved for Egwene that now both of the Forsaken that are in her camp are gone.
A Crown of Swords, Chapter 8, is from Egwene's POV, and we see her feel... It's actually a flashback to before this moment.
Oh.
Because we see her in a meeting feel a sharp pain, and she knows a man who was channeled has removed Moghedian's necklace. We actually see her thinking about Moghedian as still under her control in Chapter 8 of the next book.
Oh, yeah.
And then it flashes back.
As Chapter 8 of the next book? Nice. Okay, so yeah, because we get, the timeline starts to get folded at about these points in the books. Because we're working our way up to the cleansing, so the timeline gets very fuzzy. But that's a time sync, that snap of pain through the link.
Beneath the edge of the table, she felt her belt pouch. This is Crown of Swords, Chapter 8. Felt the bracelet inside. She should wear it more. It was a duty. Keeping her head low, she dug the bracelet out and slipped it around her wrist. A band of silver made so the catch was invisible once closed. Made with the one power, the bracelet snapped shut beneath the table, and she very nearly snatched it off again. Emotion flooded into a corner of her mind. Emotion and awareness. A little pocket, as if she were imagining it. Not imagination, though. All too real. Half an Adom, the bracelet created a link between her and the woman who wore the other half. The silver necklace the wearer could not remove herself. They were a circle of two, without embracing Sidar. Egwene, always leading by virtue of the bracelet, Maragon, was asleep now. Her feet sore from walking all days and days past, but even sleeping, fear oozed through most strongly. Only hate ever came near fear in the stream that flowed through the Edom. Egwene's reluctance came... Well, okay, we go a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite a lot here. Next part starts with a sudden stab of pain.
So she's meeting with Shiriam, and she's pressing the advantage and being political. A sudden stab of pain through the pocket of sensations in the back of her head sent everything else flying. Had she felt it directly, it would have been numbing. As it was, her eyes bulged in shock. A man who could channel was touching the necklace around Mogedian's neck. This was one link no man could be brought into. Pain and something unheard of from Mogedian. Hope. And then it was gone. The awareness, the emotions. The necklace was off. I need some fresh air, she managed. Shiriam started to rise, and Suan, but she waved them back down. No, I want to be alone, she said hastily. Suan, find out everything Shiriam knows. Thrusting her head into the lantern, into Maragon's tiny tent, she found it empty. The blankets that made up the pallet on the ground lay in a sprawl, tossed aside by someone in a hurry. And so we see this scene twice from Egwene's POV. This is weird to hold them up side by side. And what if she had still been here, she wondered, with the necklace off, and maybe whoever had freed her? Shivering, she withdrew slowly. Mogedian had good reason to dislike her, very personally, and the only sister who would match one of the Forsaken alone, when she could channel at all, was in Ebu Dar. Mogedian could have killed Egwene without anyone noticing, even had a sister felt her channel. There would be nothing remarkable in that. Worse, Mogedian might not have killed her, and no one would have known anything until they found the pair of them gone.
That's what I'm saying.
And she ran to get there, and Shessa had followed her, running after her.
This could have gone so bad.
And then we get the same quote from Chesa, word for word. And then we get Egwene nearly jumped versus Egwene looked around.
And she says, I think she has run away. Is that the same?
I think she's run away, Chesa. Yep, that's the same.
And then it repeats the Logain part, too. A couple paragraphs.
And but then Chesa responds, Why, that wicked woman. I always said she had a mean mouth and a sneaking eye. Slinking away like a thief after you took her in. She'd be starving by the road if not for you. No gratitude at all.
Angry mutterings about women who deserted their mistresses.
So this is it's just a crazy scene because we see it from the same POV twice in two different books.
What was Jordan just like, I really want to show that Mogedian gets away, but then I didn't do it justice. Let's have a do-over.
It's a time sinker, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's more of a time sink, than anything else.
Doesn't seem necessary, but...
He's using word for word the same quote, so obviously it's like he was aware that he was reusing the same scene.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I find that fascinating. That's a very rare occurrence in for Jordan. Really emphasizing that.
We're trying to set up Egwene as she's going to have a really epic boss showdown with a Forsaken and setting you up to think it's going to be Mogedian, even though eventually, of course, it's Masana. Maybe this was kind of him being like, she is going to have one of the most epic boss fights of the entire series. Just you wait.
But yeah, I think he was just giving context. Oh, and we get timeline on that is a month and a half since she became Amyrlin.
Oh, really? At that point? At
that point.
And
this point as well, yes.
Okay, cool. Months at that point? Oh, because they've left Saladar. They're no longer in Saladar at this point. They're on the road to Tarvalin. They're on the road to their stopping point in Andor, actually. They're not even at their month-long camp yet.
Demandred knelt in the pit of doom, and for once he did not care that Shaidar Haran watched his trembling with that eyeless, impassive gaze. Have I not done well, great lord? The great lord's laughter filled Demandred's head.
Yeah.
And I come back to Demandred is hard to avoid at this point.
It's... If he's not Tame, what has he done?
The only thing you can say is he created Tame.
Yeah. And he's not the one that set up the Shido. That's Samael? Or is that Demandred? That's Samael.
That's Samael.
So he's pulling the strings in the Black Tower?
He's at least setting Tame to pull strings?
I think he's pulling the strings in the Black Tower. I think he's in an alliance with Masana and Semirog, so you could say maybe he took some credit for the breaking of the White Tower, and he's taking credit for the return of the Shanshan, which is happening right now.
And getting the Black Tower to Demise Wells at the exact right time.
Right, and I think Demise Wells. I think, really, if anything else, Demise Wells is what he's taking credit for right now.
And then I gotta counter with what Fool of Life is bringing up. Maybe this has nothing to do with what we saw in the book, And this is our hint that Bao the Willed has really come into his own in Shara and is getting that sorted out.
That's a good point, because we have seen Grendel take their leaders. We have seen rumors of them fall into chaos, and then we have seen him, perhaps at this point he's killed the quote-unquote dragon, right?
He's gotten Sakarnan.
Exactly. The worm.
River of Souls has happened. Yeah.
This would be a good time to go back and look at River of Souls.
Yes.
And this is Jordan creating chaos in our minds, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Because with Robert Jordan, I'm like, this could be him introducing an entirely separate plot line at the end, just to fuck with you a little harder.
Yeah.
It would be very him. And then, of course, why not both? Also, an incredibly valid third option. Fifth option? I don't even know how many options we have at this point. There's a lot of options.
Yeah, it does make the reader at this point, if this is the first time you've read the books, go, oh, well, he just set up everything. He is tame. He did all that stuff.
Right. Your first
He was
read.
the big bad. He was the big bad.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. In fact, he isn't the big bad. I remember reading the books and thinking, well, Demandred, he's going to be the worst one. He's going to be the one that we're all leading up to fight, other than the Dark One himself. And he just kind of was a bit of a letdown.
Okay, you can't say he was a letdown when it took Lan to kill him.
He was a letdown.
Okay.
All I can say is the Dark One has Demandred set aside for Rand.
For Rand. The contest ended today. The songs are out there. We're allowed to do it.
You're going to have to link to it in the show notes now.
Oh, fuck yeah, I do. Yeah, it's fun. Seth and I had fun making that.
This, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, led to more goddamn speculation about what did Demandred do? Who is he? Where is he? What's going on? Why is the Dark One happy? What is Jordan signaling? I mean, this sentence makes me want to tear my hair out.
Yeah.
Oh,
As it should. The Lord of Chaos ruleth here.
Yeah. It's not quite Asmodean levels of, his death, but
it's surely equally obvious.
Equally.
Right? Equally.
Yes.
Yeah, clearly.
yes, super clear.
And this is where Jordan liked to fuck with us. Let's just put that out there, right? Like,
Yeah.
the man liked to fuck with the reader sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
This is a read and find out moment.
Reread and find out. You'll never make it to the end. You'll never get there. But speaking of the end, should I read us out of this book?
Please.
The unstained tower breaks and bends knee to the forgotten sign. The seas rage, and storm clouds gather unseen. Beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell, and serpents nestle in the bosom. What was exalted is cast down. What was cast down is raised up. Order burns to clear his path. The Prophecies of the Dragon, translation by Gerard Maynard, Governor of the Province of Ander for the High King, Arthur Pandrag Tanreal. The end of the 6th book of the Wheel of Time. Sorry, had to get dramatic there.
Definitely. I mean, no, that's a huge deal, guys. We got to the end of book 6. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And in a lot of ways, what I think of as the end of the second era of the Wheel of Time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Era 1 being book 1 through 3, right?
Yep.
Through the Dragon Reborn and the fight, and Ishamael being the bad guy and killing him. And yes, like Keith says, this is what I think of as the true midpoint of the series, even though, Jordan wrote 11 books, but I think of sort of what Sanderson wrote as Jordan's 12th book. So I think of Jordan as writing 12 books, and this is after book 6. So, like, this is boom, halfway through the series. Don't argue with me on that. The math works. It's and then we get the what I call the third era. Some people call the slog, but I'm excited to get there. 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, a change in tone.
A change in tone from introducing new worlds and new parts of the world to really just setting up the last battle and getting all of our pieces in place. And it's the mid-game. It's when we're setting up the end game to happen. And so there is a lot of, I don't want to call it stalling, but sometimes some timelines need to be synced up with others, and so
Yeah.
things don't happen necessarily as fast as you would want them to, but I still love it. Yeah.
He starts to overlap. He starts to really dig his teeth into really getting into all the details of what's going on, which actually, like, exactly what we saw here with Egwene. Oh, these 3 paragraphs weren't enough. Let's really dig into it and give this a whole chapter.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of folding back the timeline. Whereas we've been moving slower and slower through time, now not only are we moving slower through time, but we're actually folding time back onto itself and, like, reliving some parts from different POVs.
And you notice in this prophecy, there's storm clouds gather unseen, the gathering storm.
Sure.
So it's
also a reference to the sentence directly above, Demandred being in Shara, he's gathering a whole storm cloud there unseen that we don't see until the final battle.
Mm-hmm. So this is very much a tipping over, a inflection point.
Right.
And where the plots are going. And I think that's part of why the slog happens after this. I mean, I'm not sure if I consider it the slog. Every reread, I change my mind. But I think that's why, right? Because we've taken Rand through a very intense journey. He's now gone through the box. Now we have to spend a lot of time catching up with the growth and the progress of the characters around Rand, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many. You're going to need several books just to bring them up to the level of character development that Rand has already suffered.
Right. Set him aside a little bit in a way.
Smidge.
Let him go crazy.
Sorry, man, you're going to need to babysit Rand for us for a minute.
But there's a lot of setting aside what we consider our 3 main characters and building up the world a little bit.
Which is what makes the conclusion so satisfying, because there's so many people to have their stories resolve, and when Rand goes through that litany of it was never about him, it's because you've spent books figuring out who else it is about.
And why I don't think Jordan could have ever written book 12 as one book.
Yeah, agreed. No, it was always going to run away from him.
Mihaf, we definitely talked about taking the cleansing and putting it in its proper place in the book order, which would actually put it in, it's only about, I think we figured out like 3 chapters that we'd have to move from the end of book 9 to the middle of book 10 to do things in the proper order.
We need Bambi. Bambi will help.
So we're going to do non-linear chapters with that. It's going to be interesting.
Non-linear cleansing, but that'll help, like with Herid. It'll help us sort out what's what. In 2024, we'll get there eventually.
You're going to need a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, that's we're talking book 9, 10. We're about to start book 7. It's only a year. It's a year for 2 books. So, no, we're talking closer to 2023.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, no, I've noticed your schedule for next book. It ends before SpoilerCon.
Well, we've only got 41 chapters in the next book, and so assuming it's a
yeah, book 7's really short.
It's a shorter book with fewer chapters.
And with the 2 of you, you're going through it a lot faster.
So we are going to go through it faster. We're staying on schedule.
Yeah. So yeah, we're already going to be into book 8 for SpoilerCon.
Definitely.
Crap, yeah, the cleansing is going to be here before we know it. Crap.
Yes, it is. Yes,
yeah, we definitely need to plan that now.
I was joking about a spreadsheet, but in actual fact, you're probably going to want something on the website that explains if you want to listen to these episodes in the order of the books, listen to them this way. If you want to listen to them in the order of chronological, listen to them this way.
We are definitely going to need Bambi to help us hold that down.
I'm just going to have to... It really is very simple. I looked at it, and it literally is take the last 3 chapters from Winter's Heart and put them in the middle of book 10, where the cleansing is supposed to... Like, after everyone sort of sees the cleansing happening, right? Because there's this whole time period where they see the power going,
right.
And then there's a break where they no longer see it. Just put those 3 chapters in place when you don't have to... All you do is basically, you go through book 10, skip the end of it, go through book 11. When you get to that spot, you go back to book 10, do those 3 chapters, and then continue on. It's a very simple. It's not even backwards or anything.
I love it.
It's a very simple cut and paste.
I'm so into it.
And that's going to make all the difference in terms of doing things in chronological order. And it may be weird for the podcast because there may be this longer gap, but we won't be being like, oh, we already saw that.
Yep. I adore it.
Even just in this one where we were flipping back and forth into the book ahead and back into chapter 52 twice, It gets confusing.
It does.
Are we going to go through the prophecy, or...?
I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but...
I think so. Yeah, maybe just because we've been doing this podcast for too long. I was watching a YouTube channel where they're doing like breakdowns, and he was doing a breakdown of Tenet, and he was like, sometimes I forget that you haven't been with me on every step of the journey over the last 2 weeks while I've been researching this movie, and I may be talking at a level a little too high, and so I just let's go through it. Let's go through it, and just even if we think it's obvious.
So yeah,
the Unstained Tower.
One of you who have not podcasted everything. What's important
The
here?
Unstained Tower breaks, so Tarvalin, and bends knee to the forgotten sign, the dragon, obvious from the last chapter.
Mm-hmm.
The seas rage, Shanshan, and the storm clouds gather unseen.
Shara?
I never would have thought Shara, but yes, Shara now makes complete sense. Or also the whole bowl of the winds, we have to fix the weather.
Oh, fair.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell, and serpents nestle in the bosom. No clue. Who are the serpents?
Well, serpents in the bosom is definitely traitors that you think are your friends. So, like, dark friends, basically dark friends.
That's basically what I'm thinking. Forsaken. I think it's also...
Black Aja and dark friends.
I'd also say it's Forsaken in Randland, right? If you think of Rand as the land, these Forsaken are nestling into the bosom of the land.
Oh, okay. And there's also, like, Masana literally nestled in the White Tower.
Right.
And serpents could be Shara.
And I'm thinking the seas rage and the storm clouds gather unseen is all Shanshan, and then beyond the horizon, hidden fires swell. That's Shara.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe that's because over the horizon is, like, across the ocean or over the dragon wall, right? Like...
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I always just figured it was weather.
What was exalted is cast down. Double meaning.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kings that get cast down, but also Rand, who's been exalted as king, is very much cast down from his throne and put in a box.
And what was cast down is raised up. That's the amnesty. Men who can channel who have been cast down are now being raised up by the amnesty.
I like that.
Or I'm thinking in current, maybe like Mogedian's freed.
Oh, yeah.
She was cast down, and now she's raised back up again as someone who's significant.
Thinking also of Shara, what is exalted is cast down, their leaders being stolen.
Sure.
Oh, Egwene, cast down to Navas, raised up to Amerlin.
Oh, of course, raised to Amerlin, right? Like, what was cast down is raised up.
Yeah, and she's going to get cast down again and then raised up again.
Right.
In subsequent books.
Aes Sedai in general. They were
Yeah.
exalted, they were cast down, they will be risen again.
Yeah.
See, I am trying to think. I think that this prophecy refers to the current moment in time, not things that will happen in the future, if that makes sense.
We've also got, like, the embassies, right? Marana is cast down to the bottom of the pecking order.
Okay, maybe we're reaching a little bit on that one.
Just saying, you want to get really into the current moment. Like,
Right. Yeah, it goes back to, like, just bonds are broken, right? Like, everything churns.
But I think
changes.
order burns to clear his path means that's just another way of saying the dragon breaks all bonds.
Exactly.
It's not a specific bond, it's just any and all bonds.
And, order burning made me think of Balefire too, which...
Yeah.
Oh, the order of the world burns because he needs
Yeah.
Natron's Barrow or whatever.
The order of the Chido burned.
Yes, true. Yeah, this is also one of those ones where, like, you could actually make it fit almost any situation anywhere in the preceding book.
Oh my god, chaos! Yeah.
Really? Really? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
Any comment on the author of the prophecy? I mean, or the translation? Right, obviously it's just Koreathon cycle, so we know this is part of the Koreathon cycle. But translated by Arthur Pendragon 1,000 years ago?
No, the governor of the province of Andor for Arthur Pendrag 1,000 years ago.
A male name. Also, yeah, before Andor was ruled by women.
Yeah, this is pre-Ashara.
And I assume it's translated from the Old Tongue into Common now.
Right.
Right, yeah. This is not the husband of the first queen of Andor. It's not the same name. I don't think.
Although the name Jared Maynor does ring a bell. Let me...
Jared Maynard?
Okay,
what?
apparently there's a real person named that.
Yeah,
outta
like
here
the
with
last
your
name
realness.
just sounds so normal to our lives. The first name, no, it's
Manyard.
got Jordan-y feel, but
Man yard. It's a yard full of men.
I know Manyards. Like, just not something that's I feel very common to have a name where it's like, oh yeah, I know people with that last name.
This is the only mention of his name in the books.
Okay, yeah, so not Ishara's husband.
No.
This is just some random person who was helping out Arthur Pendrag when he was High King.
And there's another governor listed after him at the end of Arthur Pendragon's rule, so he must have been the governor before that person took over.
Yeah, so this is just the flowering of historical arts and stuff during the empire of the High King. That's just what this is.
Wow. Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you. It's been a
And
journey.
I just want to say, Aradia, thank you so much for jumping on with me for this journey, especially the end of Lord of Chaos. Like, it's been so nice to have you on, and Enarra, you've come on so many times. It's been great to have you on and have you back.
Thank you.
It's just been a pleasure to watch this podcast grow and succeed.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you guys and for the future of the show, and I've really enjoyed having that third guest on, or sometimes it's Aradia and Megan. That's okay too. I've really enjoyed having those extra voices. I think it really adds to the show. Aradia is a perfect natural fit.
Aw, thank you. This has been a delightful journey.
That is obvious from moment one.
I'm so grateful that I get to be part of this and get to be on this train with all of you. And it's just, I learned so much about this series that, I tattooed this into my leg before I met all of y'all. So this was a big deal for me. And to find people that help support my hobby to the point that I can be paid to sit down and talk about it a couple times a week is absolutely fabulous. And I'm really grateful to be here.
And, I feel like through this series is how I learned about the rest of my life, too. So it's not just...
Yes.
It's not just the book that I'm looking about. It's so much more.
Thank you, Robert Jordan.
The number of life lessons I've gotten out of this series.
And the amount of community I've gotten out of this podcast, especially in the quarantine that we've been stuck in. I mean, yeah. I've been, especially lately, reaching out to the broader community and just sort of trying to engage. And it's been amazing to see what's happened to it over the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's exploded.
I really don't feel like the community was much more than this podcast and maybe one or two other content creators.
Right.
And obviously there was a real life online community and Dragon Mount and those folks who went to JordanCon and knew each other. But I really feel like the online community has become this very special thing over the last 2 years. And I'm super happy with it and super happy to engage with it. And it's just been a pleasure.
Happy to help continue making it. We are helping make it.
And I have a little bit of pride in that. I feel like I helped foster it. That like this Discord and this podcast was a bit of an incubator for at least some parts of that community when it wasn't out there, and that like pretty much everyone who's creating content now, some of the best content creators were here on the Discord or part of the podcast a long time ago, or at least definitely listen to it. Right.
It definitely feels like a family right now. Yeah. And as we go into this, whatever that TV show might bring, we have this like pretty tight community right now in Wheel of Time in general. Like there's a bit, there's a difference between the Discord and what's happening on Twitter and the YouTube kind of, there's sort of like different aspects to it, but I think everyone has been super friendly and like I've been a lurker. I'm still a lurker. Let's be real.
You know what? I think once you get on the podcast, you can't consider yourself a lurker when you're creating the content.
Fair enough.
You're not lurking anymore.
Fair enough.
Maybe in Discord you're a lurker, but not in the community.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to SpoilerCon, and I don't know if travel is in the future of October 2021, but
there will be an online component, so that way SpoilerCon can be a global experience.
Yeah, and it may actually mostly be an online con with a in-person aspect to it. Like there may just be one central room that things get broadcast from, and 10 of us hanging out. I don't know how many people are going to be able to.
It's going to be fun regardless. We're going to have an event, and it's going to be worth looking forward to.
And I hope that I get that.
Oh my god, seriously. have so many content things that are like about to boil over. My mom and I have been. She really wants to make content, but she's super unfocused, and I really want to make content and I'm focused, so I might be helping her learn how to make more kinds of content and distribute it more predictably, because she's a freaking riot, but she's just so unfocused on the technical back end of like, actually put the content out for the masses. That part's important. And I'm gonna get a green screen really soon. I'm so excited to make all the content. Yeah, I got my camera out the other day, but my tripod and my desk are not playing nice together for like where the camera can go versus like flattering angles to my face and where my computer screens are, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. But the tripod I have is huge. I'm like, this is a little tripod, and it's like, let me take your entire desk. Okay.
I like the clamps.
I have like a normal, like, stand it up in a field and make it level sort of tripod. Not a desk intended tripod. It's a good camera though. It only can shoot 18 minutes at HD though. I need a bigger memory card because I can't do Broken Earth in 18-minute segments.
Mine actually has a hard cutoff at 20 minutes. No matter the size of the card. Which is frustrating.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's like way too little to do content in.
I mean, what it means is just after 20 minutes, you hit the button again, and just have multiple 20-minute chunks.
That sounds terribly inefficient.
Yeah. But again, video I feel like is a little different. I feel like I'm not recording, like, I'm not sitting down and just recording for hours at a time.
Maybe you should do it before you assert that too heavily.
Maybe.
I've been editing a video for a podcaster friend in an effort to see if I can be a useful part of their setup, and I'm getting to use the same tools in Reaper, the same key commands and the same basic things, but it's a different medium to think in video. Like, you can't slice the sentences apart nearly as much and still feel authentic.
No, each cut is much more significant.
Oh yeah, Prince Adeline's boyfriend. I am not yet editing video of myself for that reason. And if I do video, it will probably be with somebody else, #Seth, doing the editing, because editing one's own face.
I haven't even listened to my second podcast yet. I got through 5 minutes. But it's like, I know I had a coughing fit halfway through, and that's traumatized me. Even though I'm sure you edited it out, it's just traumatizing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about all the different tracks is I just mute yours and...
Yeah.
The only way out is through.
True. And, I mean, I listened to the first one. It was great. I was happy with it.
You just have to desensitize yourself to your bad days, and then nothing else can hurt you.
I mean, it's still the number one reason why I don't get an episode out on time, is that, like, I turn on the thing, I hear my own voice, and go, nope, not today.
Right. Yeah. It's exactly what happened. I've tried, like, 3 or 4 times, and I get through a few seconds, and go, okay, no, I have to wait a little bit longer. And I'm right now, I'm actually, like, 8 episodes behind, so I'm just going to go through them. And when I hit mine, I'm just going to keep going. That's how I'm going to deal with it. I just finished the one with Megan and Aradia on your birthday, Seth. It was a fantastic episode.
Was that the coup? Was it that one?
Yeah. You guys did a great job.
Cut me out more often. I think you get a better product.
I wouldn't say it's because you were cut out. It just happened to be a really good episode.
It was a really good one. It's a good content in that chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?